Sometimes, we think that loving someone deeply is the most selfless and noble act we can do. But when that love begins to drain us, when it demands all our time, energy, and identity, we must ask, is this still love, or is it self-destruction? Welcome to the channel Beyond Nirvana. Today we will share a story of a young monk who gave everything in the name of love until he lost himself in the process. This tale will remind you that real love begins with self-love. In a small monastery nestled between silent mountains and whispering pines lived a young monk named Kaizen. He was calm, kind, and deeply committed to the path of Zen. Every morning he would rise with the sun, meditate by the lake, and reflect on the teachings of his master, Zenji. Kaizen believed that compassion was the highest virtue. He offered it freely to everyone, his brothers in the monastery, strangers in the village, even the birds and the ants. But above all, he gave his heart completely to a woman named Aiko. Aiko was not a monk. She lived in the nearby village and worked as a healer. She had a graceful presence and a mysterious smile that haunted Kaizen's thoughts long after their conversations ended. Her laughter seemed to echo in his chest. Her sadness became his storm. Kaizen loved Aiko with all his soul. He would skip meals to help her gather herbs. He would wake at midnight to walk through the forest just to leave her a note. He began to miss his meditations, his duties, and even the teachings of Master Zenji. But to Kaizen, it all felt worth it, because it was love. One evening, Master Zenji noticed Kaizen staring at the horizon, lost in thought. "Your eyes are not where your body is," said the old master. Kaizen smiled. "My heart is walking a different path, master." Zenji said nothing, only looked at the sky. In the weeks that followed, Kaizen became a shadow of himself. His once clear mind grew cloudy. His spirit, once serene, became restless. But he told himself this was the price of love. Isn't love supposed to be about giving everything? Then came the day that shattered his illusion. One cloudy afternoon, Kaizen rushed to Aiko's home with excitement burning in his heart. He had picked the rarest mountain flower, one that bloomed only once every 7 years. To him it was a symbol of his love, rare, beautiful, and devoted. But as he approached her hut, he stopped in his tracks. Through the window, he saw Aiko with another man. They were laughing. She held his hand like she used to hold Kaizen's. That mysterious smile she gave Kaizen, she gave it to this man too. Kaizen stood frozen, the flower trembling in his hand. Aiko noticed him at the door and came outside, a bit surprised but calm. "Kaizen," she said gently, "you've always been kind, but you must understand your love. It's too much. It feels like a weight I never asked to carry." Kaizen's lips parted, but no words came out. "I never promised you anything," she added. "You gave everything without asking what I wanted." Her words struck him like thunder across a still lake. All the nights he stayed awake thinking of her, the hours he sacrificed, the silence he endured, all seemed foolish now. Kaizen walked back to the monastery in silence, his heart heavier than ever. The flower slowly withered in his hand. That night, Master Zenji found Kaizen sitting under the Bodhi tree. "I thought if I loved deeply, that would be enough," Kaizen whispered. Zenji looked at him with compassion. To love someone is not to dissolve into them. If you empty yourself completely for others, who remains to love? Kaizen closed his eyes. His world had broken, but something inside was waking up. The following morning, the monastery was quiet. The birds sang gently, the leaves rustled with the wind, and the sun broke through the clouds like golden truth. But inside Kaizen, a storm still lingered. He isolated himself, not out of anger, but to listen, to feel. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about Aiko, he was thinking about himself. He asked, "What have I become in the name of love?" He sat in the monastery's garden, a place he once loved but hadn't visited in weeks. The cherry blossoms were blooming again, beautiful, delicate, short-lived, much like his illusion of love. Master Zenji approached quietly and sat beside him. "Master," Kaizen said, "I now realize I was not in love. I was addicted to how she made me feel." Zenji nodded. "Many confuse attachment with love. You weren't loving her, you were trying to escape your emptiness by pouring yourself into her." Kaizen looked down. "Then what is true love?" Zenji picked up a pebble and dropped it into the pond. Ripples moved outwards. True love begins within. If your own cup is empty, how can you offer water to others? Kaizen began to cry, not out of sorrow, but from the relief of truth. The silence between them spoke more than words. Over the next few days, Kaizen returned to his old practices. He meditated, not to escape pain, but to understand it. He stopped writing letters to Aiko. He burned the ones he never sent. And slowly, something changed. In the stillness of his mind, a new voice began to speak. Not loud, but steady, it said, "You matter too." Weeks passed. Kaizen spoke less, but observed more. For the first time, he began to look inward, not with judgment, but with curiosity. He watched his breath. He noticed his thoughts. He sat with his past, not to relive it, but to learn from it. One afternoon, while sweeping the temple grounds, Kaizen came across an old mirror inside a dusty storage room. It was cracked slightly, but still reflected clearly. He looked into it, and for the first time in months, really saw himself. Not just his face, but the tiredness in his eyes, the vulnerability, the desperation that once clung to another for meaning. He whispered, "Who are you, really?" That night, he returned to the meditation hall and lit a candle. As the flame flickered, he whispered again, "I have spent so long trying to be enough for someone else. I forgot to be enough for myself." Master Zenji entered the hall as if summoned by the silence. "You're starting to see," Zenji said softly. "Love is not the fire you throw yourself into. It's the warmth you carry within." Kaizen replied, "I always believed loving deeply was the way to prove my worth." Zenji shook his head. "Your worth does not need proving. It needs remembering." That night, Kaizen did not dream of Aiko. He did not feel longing or pain. He felt peace. A peace born not from forgetting, but from understanding. He looked inwards and whispered, "I will love you now," speaking to his own soul. It had been over a month since Kaizen last saw Aiko. Her presence no longer lingered in his thoughts like a haunting echo. Instead, there was space, vast, still, open. And in that space, Kaizen discovered something unexpected, strength. One morning, Master Zenji invited Kaizen to climb Sacred Mountain behind the monastery. It was steep, demanding, and not many monks attempted the journey more than once a year. As they ascended, Kaizen asked, "Why this mountain, Master?" Zenji replied with a smile, "Because the higher you climb outside, the deeper you go within." Hours passed. The path became narrow, the air thinner, and the silence deeper. At one point, Kaizen stumbled. His legs ached. His breath grew short. He was tempted to turn back. But then he remembered all the times he ran toward Aiko, sacrificing sleep, food, and energy. If he could do that for someone else, couldn't he do it for himself? He stood, steadied his breath, and kept climbing. When they finally reached the summit, Kaizen collapsed onto a flat rock, exhausted but smiling. Below, the world stretched out like a painting. Valleys, rivers, clouds floating below their feet. Zenji sat beside him. This is what happens when you stop chasing others and start walking your own path. You rise. Kaizen closed his eyes. He had once believed love was about suffering for another. Now he saw that true love, the love that liberates, begins by climbing the mountain within. He realized he wasn't empty. He had just forgotten where to look. Back at the monastery, something had changed. Kaizen no longer avoided the places that once reminded him of Aiko. He didn't flinch at the memory of her laughter. He didn't carry regret like a wound. Instead, he began to feel gratitude. Gratitude for the pain. Gratitude for the loss. Gratitude for the mirror it held up to his soul. He had once believed love meant losing yourself in someone else. But now he saw love in its highest form does not ask you to shrink. It asks you to shine. He began helping younger monks with their meditation. Not as a teacher, but as a companion. He spoke less, but when he did, his words came from a calm, centered place. One day, a young monk named Hiro approached him. Kaizen, Hiro said, how did you get over your heartbreak? Kaizen smiled. I didn't get over it. I walked through it. He continued. At first, I thought my love was noble. But it wasn't love. It was a craving to be seen, to be needed. I gave too much because I didn't believe I was enough. Hiro frowned. But isn't loving someone deeply a good thing? Kaizen nodded. Yes, but only if that love is rooted in self-respect, not self-sacrifice. Otherwise, it's not love, it's fear. That night, Kaizen sat alone under the stars. He whispered into the still air, I forgive myself. It wasn't dramatic. There were no tears, just a quiet, powerful shift, a transformation. He was no longer a broken lover. He was becoming a whole being. It was a golden evening in autumn. The monastery glowed in amber light. Kaizen was tending the garden when he heard footsteps, gentle, familiar. He turned. Aiko stood at the edge of the garden, her eyes wide, her smile hesitant. It's been a long time, she said softly. Kaizen felt something stir within him. Not pain, not longing, but stillness. Yes, he replied. It has. She walked closer. I came to say thank you for everything, and I'm sorry I didn't realize how deeply you felt. Kaizen smiled kindly. You don't need to apologize. You taught me more than you know. Aiko's eyes welled up. I was confused back then. I've been on my own journey, too. Kaizen nodded. I understand. Sometimes we meet people not to stay in their lives forever, but to awaken something in them, and in ourselves. There was a silence between them, filled not with tension, but peace. Aiko asked, do you ever think about what could have been? Kaizen looked at the sky. I used to, but now I think about what is and who I've become. She smiled through her tears. You've changed. Kaizen replied, I didn't change. I returned to myself. They stood in silence once more. Then, with a gentle bow, Aiko turned and walked away. This time, Kaizen didn't watch her disappear. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. There was no regret, no bitterness, only clarity. The past had returned, not to reopen wounds, but to show how fully they had healed. Seasons passed. The trees shed their leaves, the sky turned gray, then blue again. Life at the monastery continued quietly and rhythmically. And Kaizen, once broken by love, now bloomed in its truest form. He no longer carried the weight of old memories. He no longer sought validation in the eyes of another. And most importantly, he no longer abandoned himself for the sake of someone else's affection. One morning, as he sat meditating beneath a Bodhi tree, Master Zenji joined him. You seem lighter these days, Zenji observed. Kaizen smiled, eyes closed. I've let go. Of her? Asked the master. Kaizen opened his eyes slowly. Of the version of myself that needed her. Zenji placed a hand on his shoulder. You have finally learned the essence of Zen La. Not clinging, not craving, not proving, but being. Simply being. Kaizen whispered, I thought love was about sacrifice. Now I see it's about alignment. If someone loves you, they walk beside you, not ahead, not behind, and never at the cost of your soul. Later that day, Kaizen went to the garden, now lush and full of color. A young monk approached him with a question. Can one love without losing themselves? Kaizen replied, yes, but only after they found themselves. He picked a blossom and handed it to the young monk. This flower doesn't bloom for anyone else. It blooms because that is its nature. And because it blooms, others are drawn to it. That night, Kaizen lit a single candle in the meditation hall and whispered, I love you, to the soul that had always been with him, his own. He was no longer searching, no longer waiting. He was free. Free in self-respect, free in truth, free in love. Thank you for walking this journey with us through Kaizen's transformation. If this story touched your heart, if it helped you reclaim a piece of yourself, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel Beyond Nirvana. Remember, loving someone isn't wrong, but loving yourself first is wisdom. Until next time, breathe deeply, live truthfully, love wisely.